to a Cooking with Miss Carlson, episode 82. A lot of episodes.
So we took a couple of months off, but we're back to show you some holiday recipes. Now that we're back to full virtual learning as well. So today we're going to show you how to make some traditional cinnamon rolls.
Probably once every month she says we should do Cooking with Miss Carlson.
Yeah. And we've done sticky buns in the past. So this is a little bit different. This is more traditional cinnamon rolls, and they only take just about an hour to make. So they're very, very good. What you're going to need for this is 2 3/4 cups of flour, a tablespoon of yeast, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 cup of sugar, 2 tablespoons of butter, 1/2 cup of water, and 1/4 cup of milk, and 1 egg.
Nice.
What that is going to do is make our dough. Okay, you will be using some butter, cinnamon, and sugar later for the inside, but for this part, that's what we're going to need to make our dough. So what you'll do first is put a tablespoon of yeast into your mixing bowl and a teaspoon of salt. You want to get the salt out? Right up here.
Yeah.
A teaspoon, oh, yeah, it's right there. A teaspoon of salt, 1/4 cup of sugar.
Yeah, it's here. Here's yours.
Okay, here you can add this. Salt.
Got it. Sugar.
Okay.
Everyone's favorite thing, sugar.
Salt, sugar, and 2 3/4 cup of flour. Remember, when you put your flour in, you want to make it kind of light and fluffy. So to do that, I just pick it up in my measuring cup and just lightly fluff it down into the container. That helps to make it a little bit fluffier. So there's 1 cup, 2 cups, and then 3/4. Okay?
Nice.
All right. Then what you'll do is in a measuring cup, you're going to measure out 1/2 cup of water
Add milk.
and 1/4 cup of milk. So you should have 3/4 cup in your measuring cup.
Then you put about
2 tablespoons of butter
and then
into that measuring cup.
you put it in the microwave for about
A minute and a half.
minute.
All right, so once your milk mixture is heated up in the microwave, you're going to dump that into your mixer. And we're just going to give it a quick stir with a wooden spoon. We need to put an egg in. So Rachel, if you want to crack the egg, crack it into the measuring cup.
I'm not trying to ask.
You can crash it on.
Try asking that question. Okay.
Okay, so we'll put the egg in and then let this fully knead for 5 minutes. Okay, so we've let our dough knead for about 5 minutes. This is what it will look like when it's done. It's not sticky. You pull it out of your bowl and then just kind of work it into a nice circle. And then what we're going to do is just set it out on our counter and cover it with some saran wrap. This will prevent it from drying out, and it will give it just enough time to activate the yeast and start the rising process. Okay, so we'll let that sit out for about 5 minutes or so. So meanwhile, we're going to make the inside of our cinnamon roll. You'll need 1/2 stick of butter, so 1/4 cup of butter. You'll want to make sure that this butter is softened, not melted, but softened. I usually do this by putting my stick of butter in the microwave on the softening setting. Just make sure it doesn't become melted. You're also going to need 2/3 cup of brown sugar. Yep. So you want this to be packed. So you press down your brown sugar. Come on over here and put it in. Okay. We also need a tablespoon of cinnamon. Okay, you want to put that in? It's a lot of cinnamon, but they are cinnamon rolls.
I mean, yeah.
Right?
That's the point of it.
Okay.
You don't want to become brown sugar rolls.
And we need 1 teaspoon of vanilla to mix this up. Go ahead and dump that in. Okay. Then we're just going to stir that up, and that's what's going to get put on top of our dough. Okay, but we're going to let our dough sit out for about 5 minutes. This is what your topping will look like. All right, so we've let our dough sit out a little bit. Now what we need to do is put a little bit of flour onto a clean surface. Kind of sprinkle it around. This is just so our dough doesn't stick. All right, so we're going to take the plastic wrap off of our dough and put it on our flour. Just make sure that your surface is kind of lightly covered. You don't want it to be too floury though, because it'll get, then you'll get that floury taste. You just want it floured enough so it doesn't stick to your counter. Okay, now what we're going to do is roll this out into a rectangle. Once your dough is rolled out, just to give you an idea, this is a 9 by 13 inch pan. I rolled it out just a little bit longer than the 9 by 13 inch pan and a little bit wider. While we've got this out, you do need to spray a 9 by 13 inch pan with cooking spray, so we'll do that. You also want to preheat your oven to 200 degrees. That's what we're going to use as our rising temperature for these rolls, is quick rise. Okay, now we've got our softened butter. Remember, this is 1/4 cup of butter. We're going to put this on here. If you want to use the wrapper, that works too, so you don't get your hands too messy. Or you can just use your hands too, but we'll get a little buttery. We're going to spread this over the top. You don't want this to be melted, because when you roll your rolls up, if it's melted, the butter will seep out all over the sides. So you just want it softened enough to spread, but not too soft so that it spreads out. This just seems like a lot of butter, but I guess that's what makes these taste good, right? Just don't need the paper. Rachel, you want to bring the brown sugar over?
Over here. Got it.
Okay.
There's your brown sugar.
Now we're going to put our brown sugar, cinnamon,
Can I put it on?
and vanilla. Yep. We're just going to kind of sprinkle it. Just take some out of the bowl. Come over here, though, so you can see. And over here.
On my hand. Okay, so let's shake it.
Yep. So we're just going to spread this all over the top.
Very cinnamony.
This is the good stuff.
Yeah, right. One second. Gonna sprinkle this around.
Just want to spread it as evenly as possible, but we'll kind of press it
More
around
on the
too.
edge. More on the edge.
Yep. All right. So you can use your hands to spread the rest of it around.
Like this.
Yep, that's good. Then what you're going to do is start on a long end. So we'll start up here at the top. And you're just going to roll this under as you roll toward yourself. Okay, so you can see why if you used melted butter, what would happen here. The butter would go all over the place.
Now that's something you don't want on a cooking daily basis.
Right, when you get to the end here, you want to pull this up over the top and pinch it down. That will help secure.
Is this for the cooking pan?
Yep.
Okay.
Secure all of your butter and cinnamon in there, and you've got kind of an edge there. Take a serrated knife. I cut it in half first, and then you cut each half into 6. So if you want to cut them in half again to get a better idea of how big these need to be, you want to get them as equal as possible too, so that they cook evenly. Alright, so once you have your 12 rolls cut out, you're going to place in your pan. So this is what they look like. Just go ahead and put them in your pan. You have 12 of them, so you want to do 4 by 3 rows here. Okay. If your end pieces are a little bit smaller, I try to put those in the middle because that's where you'll have your doughiest rolls. All right, so there's that. We're going to cover it with tin foil, and our oven just preheated to 200 degrees. We're going to shut the oven off now and put our cinnamon rolls in there for about 25 minutes. After we let our rolls rise a little bit, this is what they'll look like. We're going to put them in a preheated oven at 375. You'll want to let these cook for about 15 minutes. So our cinnamon rolls have been baking for about 15 minutes. Ooh, they look good.
The top.
Alright, so we're looking for your rolls to be just browning up on the top. So you need a baking pan, and what I do is just put this over top of our 9 by 13 inch pan, and then we just flip it over.
Flip it.
Sometimes it might be hard to get that the pan off, so I usually just use a fork or a butter knife and flip this off.
That looks delicious.
Does look delicious. Okay, so there are the cinnamon rolls. Now we need to make a little glaze for this.
The best part of the cinnamon roll.
Okay, so what I've done is put 2 tablespoons of butter in a bowl, and we melt the butter.
Here it
we're going to add a cup of powdered sugar.
Oh,
Okay. Do you want to put this in? Add a cup of powdered sugar to that bowl. We're going to add about 3/4 of a teaspoon of vanilla. We're just going to guess. Okay, and about 2 tablespoons of milk. If you want your glaze to be a little bit more runny, then you add more milk. If you want it to be a thicker glaze, then you add less milk. Okay? So that's all there is to glaze. Glaze is pretty easy.
Probably the easiest thing. Maybe you should just make the glaze for anything now.
Yeah. And if it is too runny for you, you can always add more powdered sugar to it to thicken it up. Okay, so this is the consistency we've got here. Make sure I get all the powdered sugar clumps out. And then, while these are still warm,
Why are you in the chef?
right there, here. While these cinnamon rolls are still warm, we're just going to
Glaze it.
glaze the cinnamon rolls.
That's
Come
gonna
over
glaze.
here.
Okay.
All right, and that's how you make. It took about an hour, maybe just over an hour, to make these cinnamon rolls. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for watching season 2 of Cooking with Miss Carlson.